When you look at a dollar bill or any of our currency, our coinage, you often see the images of important people of our country. George Washington, Thomas Jefferson, Abraham Lincoln, and other great leaders of our country. They're special to us. Yet, in the time of Jesus, to have your face on a coin for the people in Palestine where Jesus lived, there was two currencies. The Jews had their own currency, the Romans had their own. The Romans always had Caesar on their coinage. And around it, what we hear today, the inscription is, "He is God. He is divine." For you can imagine for the Jewish people, even just to have one of these coins of someone who claims to be divine and God would be very difficult. And so, for example, when they went to the temple, if they had any of those coins, they knew they couldn't use that kind of coin to honor God at the temple because this was a Roman god or someone who claimed to be God. So they had to change the Roman coins to the Jewish shekels. So the Jewish shekels could be used, whatever might be purchased for a sacrifice. They wanted nothing to do with the image on those coins. They were almost, in effect, slaves of the Romans. The Romans had conquered them 90 years before. So today in the gospel, when Jesus is asked, should you be paying the Roman census tax, knowing you got to use those coins, you know that, again, like so often, Jesus is being led into a trap. If he agrees, say, oh yes, go ahead, well, then the Jewish religious leaders will say he's honoring the Roman gods. How can he be the Son of God? If Jesus disagreed, said, don't use that, then he's going to be accused of not being loyal to the Roman authorities. His answer is not just getting out of trouble, but he's giving us a guide how you and I are to live. He says, repay to Caesar what belongs to Caesar. In other words, pay the census tax, even with the Roman coins, and what he wasn't asked, repay to God what belongs to God. In other words, there's a higher value being given to something spiritual, someone spiritual, honoring God with that. In other words, Jesus is telling his listeners, your faith is more important than the Roman authorities or in serving them. So for us today, we're in a different situation. Our coins, our dollar bills and so forth, those leaders didn't ever claim to be God. But we have a civic responsibility and a religious responsibility that always continues. And we see it especially as we're about to vote in the next few weeks. Some of us, already 200,000 people have voted in our state, but there's still many who will be casting their ballot. And as you know, we have an election for our presidency, the United States Senate, the House of Representatives, and our state legislative districts. I'm not going to tell you who you should be voting for. There are people giving me plenty of input. You should be voting for Trump, you should be voting for Biden, you should be voting for Democrat, you should be Republican. As a priest, you can't do that. Church is not going to tell you which political party or which political candidate, but the church does, and you've seen me write about this in the bulletin, does give us guidance about the issues, where the candidates stand. Then you make your choice. Then you see what makes most sense from a spiritual, religious point of view, and not just political, whichever party or candidate you might prefer. For us as Catholics, we have to look carefully at the issues from a faith perspective. And as you know, abortion is the first issue. The right to life is the preeminent issue for ourselves as Catholics. Our American bishops have stressed this over the years, and this has not changed. However, you and I know it's not the only issue. There are many other issues that are important. Not as important as the right to life and against abortion, but you think about it. Just that marriage can be between a man and a woman. That the stand for assisted suicide. We have states already in this country who are legislating assisted suicide. The end of the death penalty. Not something popular by any means, but our Holy Fathers have consistently said how this is not to be done. We see the country straining in terms of immigration policy. We know the importance of how can we help those who have less and are living in poverty. We know the importance more than ever. We're seeing it these last few weeks, just in terms of a nomination for the United States Supreme Court. Religious freedom, respect for religion. We know the value and importance of health care. We know what's been going through back and forth, one administration to the other. We've seen the tension in our country with discrimination. These issues should also be considered. Someone who's done a great help for us is the Nebraska Catholic Conference. If you go to their website, they have a survey that lists so many of these issues and how the candidates for presidency, United States Senate, for our legislative districts, lines these up very clearly. Perhaps you saw the 2 pages in the Catholic Voice on Friday. Shows it very clearly where our candidates stand on those issues. That's what we want you to do, looking at the issues as you decide who you're voting for in the next election. You and I know we are in a dire situation in our country. We've seen the extremes that have been happening. We recognize how the media is so manipulative, how sometimes in the same 2 minutes you can have one ad for an issue and against, and they're just contradicting as can be. I encourage you strongly, pray for our country, for our political leaders, our political candidates, that they will have a respect for life and a dignity of the person. You know, I visit with some people, you may have as well, they say they're Catholic, but they downplay their faith. They say, no, it's going to be this party, it's going to be this candidate. It's as if the faith is second. And their faith needs to be first. Because we are Catholic. And as Catholics, we look at the issues, and oh yes, there's lots of tension. Even as Catholics, we have lots of broad opinions on that. That's the guide. And that's what I invite you, whether you've already voted or about to vote, but vote. Because in 3 weeks, we don't need to be hearing about the people say, well, whatever happened as a result. If you didn't vote, you didn't participate. Is it going to make a difference? It makes a difference if we participate. How the country will go is by how its citizens respond. For us as Catholics, we have a great desire to see how we can help our country. The values we see is so important. We want to encourage that. We know there's many other values, but it's our responsibility as Catholics to take a part in that. And when we do that, it's going to be good for our church as well for our country.